friends. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope those who celebrated Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur had meaningful holidays, and those who are anticipating Sukkot later this week are looking forward to that. And we are thrilled to learn with you today with Dr. Jonnie Schnytzer, who is probably the only PhD in Jewish philosophy focusing on medieval Kabbalah, who can say that he once beat the head of Israeli Naval Commandos in a swimming race. His dissertation focused on the scientific Kabbalah of Rabbi Joseph ben Shalom Ashkenazi. Jonnie's forthcoming book is about Ashkenazi's Kabbalah, as well as a critical edition of the Kabbalist's magestic commentary on Sefer Yesira. Jonnie's also the author of Mossad thriller, The Way Back, which paints a picture of contemporary Israel. Jonnie also orchestrated the publishing of an English edition of the Hitler Haggadah, an important piece of Moroccan Jewish history from the Holocaust. Jonnie has also taken on several leadership roles in the Jewish world, including advisor to the CEO of Birthright and executive manager with StandWithUs. He lectures on a wide variety of topics relating to Judaism and Israel, especially about the untold stories and unspoken heroes of Jewish history. Jonnie is happily married with 4 gorgeous little kids, lives in Israel, and thinks that Australian rules football is the greatest sport ever invented. So Jonnie is in Israel, and what a beautiful thing that, well, this part's not beautiful, the fact that he and his family have to go from bomb shelter to bomb shelter, but what a beautiful thing that within distressful times, we can continue around the world as Am Yisrael learn Torah together. And that's what we do, even when there's a lot of anxiety or fear. We continue to learn together. And today's topic, Mount Sinai, what happened to whom and when, is a fascinating topic because it has very little to do with Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or Sukkot. You know, normally we talk about that around Shavuot, time of year. But the truth is, it's kind of fundamental to Jewish thought to think about the origins of some of our most cherished ideas. And I'm sure as a pluralistic learning group, we have a range of views around revelation and around origins of morality and origins of divine instruction. And I hope we can all go in open-minded and open-hearted to learn from a very creative and far-reaching scholar to push us to think a little bit more deeply around some of these rabbinic sources. Dr. Jonnie Schnytzer, welcome. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure being here. I'm going to share, before I share my screen, so I have a quick question. Feel free. We're going to go with like 1, 2, 3 of us. When we think of Mount Sinai, revelation at Mount Sinai, our question is very simple. When did it happen and who got what? Just do I have any volunteers? Someone to share a one-liner? When did it happen and who got what? Simple question, not a trick question. Do we have any volunteers? Anyone brave in the audience?
I can start.
Yeah.
Okay, it happened at Mount Sinai. We don't know exactly when, approximately 3,000 years ago. The Jewish people got a promise to be protected by Hashem, to live in the land, only if they kept to the covenant, which was to follow the Torah way of life and definitely no idolatry.
Right. And I so thank you very much, Lauren. And I see here also Sue. So you also say, right, approximately 3,000 years ago, given to the people of Israel, and we got the Torah, whatever that is. And what I'd like us to do today is I really want to rock the boat. I can't stress this enough. We're going to change everything. We're going to look at fascinating sources from 20th century Morocco, going back to 13th century the Balkans. And we are going to look at distinguished moments in Jewish history to see how Mount Sinai and what it means to receive the Torah means, how it was articulated. And in a nutshell, we're going to learn something fascinating. We are going to understand, we're going to hopefully learn that this concept of when did this happen is one of the greatest misunderstandings. It is thanks to Aristotle and Plato that in such a Western mindset, we think of receiving the Torah as something that happened 3,000 years ago. So, and we're going to change that, and we're going to learn, in fact, what tshuva means, what it means to return to ourselves, and how this is connected to Mount Sinai. Then we're going to shift, and we're going to ask, well, who received what? And here, too, we are going to write, so what we've been told here is a very Judo-centric, right? It's beyond human-centered, it's Jewish-centered. The Jewish people received the Torah. And interestingly, we are going to see views that don't see it like that. They see it very, very differently, and it's going to change. It's going to change things for us. And finally, we are going to ask, well, what did we receive? What did we get? Was it 10 commandments? Was it, after they were broken, something? Meaning, traditionally, what did we get? And we're going to conclude just very briefly with this, where we're going to look at Judaism today, and hopefully we're going to get a different perspective. So having said that, I'm now going to share my screen because now we're ready. Okay, right. So this is our lecture, and the reason I chose okay. So the reason I chose Cosimo Rosselli's fresco of Mount Sinai, because, this has always appeared to me to be a kind of portrayal that I wouldn't have thought of. It's not what I thought of as a child. It's not what I was taught in kindergarten. It wasn't a photo that I saw. It's very different. And that's what I love about it, that it takes a moment. Also, by the way, notice where Moses is. Like, your eyes first go to the cloud in the sky, and you have perhaps Moses above, but then wait, all of a sudden he's down here, and people dress differently. It's this sort of Renaissance scene. It's somewhat confusing, but essentially I think it hits the nail on the head. And that is that there is something to be said about the taken for granted way in which we assume Mount Sinai, what happened when, to whom, and so many questions. So we're going to begin with the most basic question, and that is, when did it happen? And purposely, for when did it happen, I was tempted to choose a photo, another photo of Mount Sinai, but I was like, no. You need, the photo that we need to go with this teaching is a photo that is part of a culture that is all about, it has nothing to do with time. It is beyond time. It is beyond Western categorization of the scala naturae, of inanimate flora, fauna, humans, Jews, non-Jews. It is country, right? Indigenous Australians do not have Australia versus Israel versus Europe. There is simply country with a capital C. And what we see here is the place where everything's happening. And so we want to now connect to our first question, and that is to understand very simply, when did Mount Sinai, when did we get what we got? And in order to answer this, if you look at the bottom right part of the screen, we see one of my favorite figures from Morocco, Rabbi David Cohen Scali. Rabbi David Cohen Scali, we're talking early 20th century, so late 19th century, early 20th century. He is one of the giants. Like, David Cohen Scali is the guy that people go to when they want to understand how to be a good Jew, what you need to be doing. He wrote a brilliant commentary on the Torah, on the Bible, and what we are going to read now is his opening. And it's one of the most beautiful openings I've ever read. The Hebrew is even better. But it's his opening, his justification, the audacity to be able to interpret scripture. And here's how he begins. I offer a donation to God from the portion granted to me by God in wisdom and understanding, in his perfect and upright Torah. from the Torah innovations connected to me and my soul, the soul of David, right? This is not King David, but David Kohen Skali. From the bread of my soul, right? Lechem nafshi, in the holy and awe-inspiring gathering at Mount Sinai. Wait a second. Rabbi David Kohen Skali, in the opening to his commentary, has just told us what you're about to read in my book that I'm penning down, pen on paper, in the early 20th century, is what my soul got. It's my commentary that my soul was given at Mount Sinai. Now that's wild. That's already sort of, this is beyond time. This is someone saying, hey, meaning, what is my justification? By the way, David Kohen Skali, if we just stop here for a moment, there is actually incredible responsibility that Debbie, Rona, Lawrence, all of us have. David Kohen Skali is saying each and every one of us, our souls were at Mount Sinai, and we got something that our neighbor didn't get. And we have the audacity not to share that, not to search for it. Shame on us. So this is how we begin. His soul, we don't know when, but he got at Mount Sinai his own interpretations. Okay. And it is hidden within me in potential in my soul. This is even more fascinating. He is very subtly weaving in Aristotelian Greek philosophical ideas of generation and corruption. Things that exist and things that are in potential to exist, like the tooth of a baby. David Kohen Skali is telling us, make no mistake, my Torah, what I was given in Mount Sinai, is like the potential of a tooth in a baby's mouth. It exists, but it's up to me when and how it's going to come out. Now I will arise, says God, to search and seek it. As it says, I love those who love me, and those who seek me shall find me. And it is written, if you seek it like silver and search it for its hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of God. It is written, the desire of God will succeed in his hand, for everything is accordance to the desire and preparation of the person. Now, you might think differently, and I'd love to know in the end what you think, but to my mind, what David Kohen Skali is telling us, he's alluding to the fact that Mount Sinai and the giving of Torah is an event happening in potential in each and every one of us. He is going against this Western dichotomous idea of then and now, past and future. He's saying, get with the program. The Bible is Torah and Hashem, and right, according to his mindset, the teaching of the Torah is beyond this Western concept of back then and now. It's beyond that. You're asking me when Mount Sinai happened? What are you talking about? It happens when I search for it, when I actively want to find it. This is one of the most beautiful visions I've ever read. He's actually telling us that we can experience, we have the potential to experience Mount Sinai, the giving of the Torah in our lifetime. And he's questioning, he's asking us, are you on board? Have you ever thought like this? Or are we trapped in the way we were taught in kindergarten? This happened 3,000 years ago. Because we can't go beyond the literal meaning of the text, which is analyzed constantly in the world we live in. And the world we live in has clocks and watches and you know, it's very like this. But much like this indigenous Australian painting, what David Kohen Skali is trying to point to is that thinking about Mount Sinai and thinking about how each and every one of us can find our secrets from the Torah, we have to view reality in a very different way. And if we think that Mount Sinai happened way back when, and now we're just trying to learn from someone this reception history, he's saying, that's great, but there's something else. And he also noticed, he mentions here, that there is also this issue of, the more effort you put in, ultimately, if you search, right, if you build it, he will come. That's what he's saying. If you build it, he will come. If you're willing, if you're there, if you're in the mindset, God's waiting. The question is, where are we? He continues. If a person finds God's grace, divine influence will be bestowed upon him from above, imparting holy influence to comprehend the words of wisdom and to safeguard from any error. Now notice he's alluding to something else that is super important, right? Once you come and preach, once you come and say that Mount Sinai is something that can happen in potential now, you better have a few caveats. And here are the caveats. So the first one, right? So there might be errors. Imparting holy influence to comprehend the words of wisdom and to safeguard from any error. But it is not human understanding that determines, but rather according to the time and moment deemed favorable by the Creator. For not all times are equal. Sometimes it comes briefly. Sometimes it comes extensively. Sometimes it rushes like a warrior to run the path, and gates of heaven open and water flow, rivers sweep by. And sometimes it progresses slowly, and no answer is found, and time is disrupted. There is no bread and no garment. For this is the essence of man walking by the spirit of the day. This is powerful stuff. Right? David Cohen Scali is telling us that once you accept this notion that Mount Sinai can happen any day, any time, it might take you 5 years. It might take you a day. You're going to have great days where you're sitting and learning and studying and nothing comes up. You're going to have days where you think you've come to conclusions, but be very careful to question yourself. Is it from your own knowledge? Or do you really feel that you had this moment of connection, that you really had your own private revelation with Mount Sinai? Right? This is a deep psychological, contemplative, meditative practice we're talking about. And the caveats that are required here are patience, our understanding that this is a beyond human moment. It's like, so towards Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we all try and work on things. What are the things we want to work on? And sometimes we have problems. We come with certain baggage. We come with things that we don't know how to solve. And there's this beautiful idea that, especially towards Rosh Hashanah, don't try and solve the issues with your mind. I mean, you can try to, but essentially you should be praying that the solution will come from above, that you'll have this moment of insight, and we all experience them, where all of a sudden we're trying to solve this problem. How do we solve this issue with someone? Or how do we get better with something? And sometimes it's simply saying, this is beyond the finite. We need a solution from above. And David Cohen Scali is saying, when you have those moments, then that's connecting with the infinite. And when you think about it, if God is infinite, how on earth can we talk about a finite moment in which Torah was given at Mount Sinai? It's a contradiction in terms. But David Cohen Scali says, no, it isn't. It just requires digging deeper into, well, if that's what God is, and if God is beyond the natural, then so is revelation at Mount Sinai. And this already brings us closer, right? What David Cohen Scali is talking about essentially is how we connect to our souls. We want to know how we're able, and that's tshuva. Tshuva, returning, is closing circle to that innermost divine aspect of us, right? According to this interpretation. And once you connect to that, you've done tshuva. Once you've connected. So we have here a definition, if you like, of what doing tshuva is. It's being able to experience revelation at Mount Sinai in your own days. It's being able to connect and understand some insight from above. through hoping that this happens, through having the patience and perseverance that this will happen. So we begin with when did it happen, or what is tshuva, with Rabbi David Cohen Scali. I want to conclude this beautiful idea. We're in Morocco, and we're now going to shift to Zlochov. We need to shift to Eastern Europe, to Galicia. We need a Hasidic view to tie together, to bind, to unify with Rabbi David Cohen Scali. And for this, we need the Maggid of Zlochov. We don't have a photo of the Maggid of Zlochov, but we have a photo of his burial ground in Zlochov. And here's what he says. So the Torah, where do we receive the Torah in the Bible? The Torah portion of Yitro, Jethro. And what does the Maggid of Zlochov teach us there? He says something fascinating. In the third month after, right, he's going to strengthen what we just learned from Rabbi David Cohen Scali. It's as if the Galiciana and the Moroccan were studying together. In the third month after the children of Israel left Egypt, on that day, by Yom Hazeh, they came to Sinai, to the Sinai desert. We must examine the verse where it says on that day, without specifying which day they arrived, right? This is perplexing. The Torah, if you go read Exodus 19:1, it says they arrived on that day. And Zlochov, the Maggid of Zlochov is saying, Rabbi Michali of Zlochov, he's saying, right, Mickey, he's saying, what do you mean on that day? There's no such thing the Bible's going to tell me on that day, Mickey, without telling me, well, which day was it? It is already known that the Torah is eternal. Now, I need to tell you in brackets, whoever reads the Maggid of Zlochov, his favorite saying, this reappears throughout his entire commentary on the Torah, is that the Torah is eternal. The Maggid of Zlochov internalizes this idea, trying to manifest or understand what it means when we say the Torah is eternal. What are the manifestations, the ramifications of just simply the idea, buying into the idea that the Torah is eternal? And it very much connects to what we just said now about Rabbi David Cohen Scali, and we already are embarrassed with the way we understand Mount Sinai, which is very different to the Torah is eternal. A person can always receive the Torah in greater measure. And every time one engages and exerts effort in the Torah, they receive it more and more. It's as if they're echoing each other. The Maggid of Zlochov and David Cohen Scali are both saying, right, what is the Maggid saying? Why does it say on that day they reached Mount Sinai, on that day, without specifying? Because it can happen in every single day of our lives. It is beyond time, just like the Torah is eternal. Right? This is wild. He's saying it's in the Torah. He's saying, you're asking my commentary for on that day. We have the potential to contemplate, to meditate, reaching Mount Sinai and what we can achieve on this day. In another place, he strengthens this argument where he explains, right, anyone who you're called up to the Torah and you bless, blessed are you, Lord, who gives us the Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah. And this is why we blessed are you, the Lord who gives us Torah. The verb gives implies that he gives us Torah at all times and in every moment. End of story. The Maggid of Zlochov has just dropped the microphone. He says, this is a dropping the microphone moment. This is dramatic. He says, what else do you want me to tell you? Every time every one of us goes to say a bracha, when we go up to Lane, when we go up to the Torah and we say who gives us, he says, hey, hello, McFly, you never ask yourself why you say gives the Torah. It's obvious. Because it can happen in each and every moment. And that's revelation. That's tshuva, sorry. This is meaning, so a definition, as we've just finished Yom Kippur, on the outset of Yom Kippur, what does it mean to do tshuva? It is to connect to our soul. And here I'm weaving together, braiding like challah, the Maggid of Zlochov and Rabbi David Cohen Scali. It is bringing our soul back, quote unquote, to that moment where we received what we received, which in effect can happen in every single day because he gives us Torah every day. So thus far, right, to close the sort of this first segment or the first third, of when did it happen, we see two fantastic traditional views who, to their mind, our Moroccan and our Galiciana, Mount Sinai happens all the time. And if you want to understand what tshuva is, it is connecting, returning to our divine self. And it happens at that moment where we get something, where we've tapped into something that only belongs to us. And this is why it's such a powerful justification of Rabbi David Cohen Scali to say, hey, I don't need to justify myself for writing words of Torah. I need to justify myself if I shoot the gun too quickly, if I come and say something and I'm not convinced that it's from the divine. But to justify that I shouldn't be sharing what I got, it's an ethical responsibility. That's from Rabbi David. And Rabbi Michal, the Maggid Zlotchov, says, and it's possible because this happens every single day. The question is, who's there to get it? So we bring down the curtain on our first segment on when did it happen or what is tshuva. Now we want to understand now that we've sort of, set the, we're on the same page in terms of when it happened and we've thrown that away. Now we want to know who received the Torah. Because this also, and as you know, I was fair, I asked, and, I was given a very clear answer. The Jewish people, that's what we're always told. We're really going to rock the boat here. Okay. And by the way, right, so I love this Michelangelo fresco because, again, it's very, beyond being Judo-centric, we are very human-centered in the way we, right, anthropocentric in the way we think about everything. The Torah is given to us. It's only given to the Jewish people. And right, these divine moments, or what is revelation, right? This is our second question. If the first question was, what was tshuva? And we connected that to when did it happen? Then now we want to understand what is revelation, and we're going to connect that to the question of who received the Torah. And here we got to go to the Sfat Emet. So we're still in Galicia. We're with the Gera Rav, mid-19th century. So he's, around bit after the Maggid of Zlotchov. And here's what he says also in the Torah portion of Jethro, because it's the Torah portion where we receive the Torah. The Torah is the means by which God's vitality, chayut, can clothe itself in physical deeds. And when he says deeds, it means doing anything, literally, not a commandment, but anything that you do. You eat, you run, a physical deed. Through it, a person can cleave to him even in this world. This is the restoration of the soul, to return the soul to be connected to its source of vitality. Now, this bit's a little bit complicated, and it's on purpose, the first bit, because it's still echoing this idea of tshuva and what we're talking about, but I bring it because the Sfat Emet has something very important to tell us about the role of Torah in the world. The Sfat Emet is actually asking us, do you even understand what Torah is? Like, really? Like, what is Torah? And this is another embarrassing question, because the answer we usually give is, well, it's a book. We have it at home. We have it on our shelves. And he's saying, no, that's not a good answer. That's a very Western answer. And that's the way we think. That's the problem. It's one of the reasons why we're used to opening a book page 1 and closing it in the last page, and we don't realize that there's so much that the history of printing and the shift from oral tradition to a physical material which holds the Torah has devastated certain concepts we should have about what Torah is. This is very important. We don't think about this. We don't think about the fact that once Torah is housed in this changes everything. That's it. We're lost. We don't even realize it. So we have to start with this powerful bang. The Torah is the means by which God's vitality can clothe itself even in physical deeds. Essentially, what the Sfat Emet is saying is the Torah is what envelopes the entire world. It's why does everything tick? Why does the tree move in the wind, right? Why do we call, in Hebrew, we call, flora in Hebrew is tzomeach, right? The flora is tzomeach. It's constantly growing. What makes it grow? And domem, the inanimate, inanimate is lack of movement. And this is a problem that we have with the Greeks, because in Hebrew, domem does not mean lack of movement. It either means silent or hopeful, but it doesn't mean lack of movement. It doesn't mean lack of vitality. So all of the way we understand terms, right? There's a battle of cultures going on constantly with the words that we use. And the Sfat Emet is creating this beautiful idea that the world can work. The way things happen is Torah is like the pulse, the divine pulse that allows everything here to get its vitality. Everything, right? So we're already getting close here. So we're talking here about souls, the restoration of the soul. And we still think this is human-centered, even though he's talking about the world we live in. Through it, a person can cleave to God even in this world. This is the restoration of the soul to connect to its source of vitality. Okay, so it's still a bit vague, but let's move on with the Sfat Emet. Those who fulfill his word, to hear the voice of his word, as it is written many times, if you indeed hear my voice, implying there is a voice that is always heard. This is the Torah, through which all creation was made. And as a person acts in accordance with the Torah's way, they draw upon it. There is an equation here. Torah is what enables the vitality of creation. Yes, humans are at the center of that. But there is an ecological subtext here. There is an understanding that everything has a pulse. Now remember the question we're asking in the background, who got, what is revelation? What we're in fact told here is this voice is always heard. Heard by who? All of creation. So once we've established in step one, we've trashed this idea of time, that Mount Sinai can happen each and every moment. We are now beginning to understand that Torah is the pulse that echoes through all of creation. And that already, according to the Sfat Emet, goes beyond the human realm. So I'm not even talking about Jew, non-Jew, what kind of Jew, that doesn't matter. The Sfat Emet is saying, what are you talking about? Without the Torah, there's nothing here. The Torah is the pump of existence. But what Israel must know is that all the vitality found in the world comes from God, who renews it every moment and every instance, general and specific deeds. Now, the Hebrew here is all so much clearer. In the terminology we're talking here, the chayut, what the Sfat Emet is saying is that everything in this world is alive. This pen is alive. We might not think it's alive. The tree outside is alive. The dog barking is, everything has vitality. Everything is connected to God. Everything has the potential to. Now, this voice is heard. This is such a beautiful way of phrasing it. It's not to say that it's only for human ears. It has to be heard by everyone, by everything, because that is the source of vitality. So what we have here is this beautiful abstract idea being painted by the Sfat Emet that is nothing like a Renaissance fresco. It is so much more contemporary. It's this idea that revelation, the Torah, is vitality of everything. In the Midrash, God is my strength, etc. And to you the nation shall come. He cites a certain Midrash. Let's understand what he does with this. What does this mean, that God is my strength and the nations shall come? For God chose Israel as his portion. The Sfat Emet now wants to understand the dynamic between the Jewish people, the universalism, the world, and divine revelation. But truly, this is a deep counsel of the Creator to bring all the nations closer to him through Israel. And Israel understands this and desires to bring everyone closer to him. God is my strength, the strength of Israel. And from his strength, he gave Israel strength, giving them power through the Torah he gave them. As it says, the Lord gives strength to his people, for they are the emissaries to bring all creation closer to him. Notice all creation. At first, the Sfat Emet is telling us Torah is for everyone. Jews can sometimes think it's only about us. He says, no, no, no. You are the chosen people does not mean you're the best. It actually literally just means you were chosen because you have a certain role. Because the Torah is the pump of existence. Everyone needs Torah, according to the Sfat Emet. That's at the first human-centered level. And this already is a lot to swallow, just sort of, for a Galiciana Jew to be told, look, the Torah is also for the non-Jew. The pogrom happened yesterday. I know it's hard for you to understand, but you got to get with the program. Once you can swallow the universal pill, he then goes ecological on us and says, for all creation. When was the last time, be fair now, when was the last time one of us thought, you're walking in the park, how can I spread Torah to this eucalyptus tree? You're walking, like the Sfat Emet is saying, get real. This is a serious question. You're walking your dog. You have your thoughts. The dog has, his thoughts. And the Sfat Emet saying, well, what's going on there? You pick up a pebble on a riverbank. What's going on there? Are you in the right frequency that you're thinking that everyone is an ambassador, that everyone has the potential, everything has the potential, and that we need to be bringing all creation closer to him? Right? We're not getting with the program. That's the problem. For the vitality of everything, chayut hakol, is through the Torah. Now, tikkun olam. We always ask, what is tikkun olam? The Sfat Emet's going to tell us. And the repair of everything is through the Torah's power. He says, you want to know what tikkun olam is? It's making everything in existence an ambassador of the Torah. You can spend a lifetime trying to figure out what that means. But the Sfat Emet is telling us that's what you need to do. This is wild. This is right? Like, this is wild. This is what the soul of the Sfat Emet's getting. And he's saying that this is the task of a lifetime. To understand the meaning of opening up a ministry of foreign affairs in your backyard, in your community, in your country, and start thinking about how you bring everyone. What does that mean? Especially when we're still trying to marinate this idea that Mount Sinai can happen at any moment. And again, with all the caveats, we have to be very cautious. And now we understand that revelation, and this echoes what we just learned, is a constant thing. Much like tshuva, revelation is something the voice is heard each and every moment. And the question is, are there any takers? And it's for everyone. Chosen people, vocation. There's a role. There's something to do. But it's for everyone. Now, things are going to get really wild. To conclude who received the Torah before we move on to what we got. So this is a 13th century or 14th century Balkan text, Kabbalistic text. You better strap your seatbelts. And all the souls destined to come into the world until the end of the sabbatical cycles. Anyone who's taken a previous class with me, there's this view in Kabbalah that we don't just have one world, but God intended to create, like the Shemitah, the sabbaticals, 7 cosmic cycles, 7 worlds of 7,000 years each, where one is created, destroyed, created. And each world has its own natural conditions. each world gets its own unique manifestation of the Torah towards tikkun ha'olamot, the repair of everything until the happily ever after. So, okay. And all the souls destined to come into the world until the end of all sabbatical cycles were present at Mount Sinai. This is why the souls of Israel soared at that moment and rose. Therefore, be cautious not to harm a soul, for it too heard at Sinai the 10 Commandments. I skip a bit. Without doubt, even the cattle and flock present at the time benefited from the giving of the Torah. Now, in true Kabbalistic form, there is a secret that is hiding here. If we deduct the first bit, which means all soul, we already understand that everything has vitality, so everything has a soul, right? Vitality equates everything has a soul. So the reason it's not good to say cut down rainforests isn't because it's important to care about humans and that we have oxygen to breathe, but it's because it's God's creation and because everything is a living, breathing thing, and we need to be very careful of how we recycle divinity towards the happily ever after. So the first part, and what we've already learned by now, is that everything is alive. Everything is alive means everything has a soul. All souls were at Mount Sinai. What this actually means is that there is a cluster of souls that at present are the Jewish people. But all souls got the Torah. All souls were at Mount Sinai. Now, only when we read the continuation do we have another drop the mic moment. We are told even the animals, and this is just one category. Clearly, if we're talking about animals, we're talking about trees, we're talking about rocks, everything. Even the animals that were present at the time received revelation. Now, if you connect the bits between the three dots, what that means is that when he says you need to be cautious not to harm a soul, it's being very careful when you pick a rose, if you're not okay with a certain animal, because everything received revelation at Mount Sinai. This is wild beyond belief. This is mind-boggling stuff. So who received revelation? Think very carefully next time you look at something and say, oh, well, right? So if we connect David Cohen Scali, we have to understand a few things. We do understand that being a human, you are granted free will. You are granted, right? We have two things that everything else in the world doesn't have to be safe, to be sure. We have free will and we tell stories. And they're what makes us so good and what makes us so bad. And so David Cohen Scali, if we connect it here, it means that as humans, we can be contemplating this, thinking about this. We have the privilege to try and do tshuva. We have the privilege to reach those revelatory moments, but we also have the ethical responsibility to connect all other beings and things in the world to revelation, because they can't presently do what we can. So this is a huge moment. Okay, we're coming towards our end, so we have time for questions, and we're a bit delayed, so we'll keep this bit very short. In fact, I won't even really open this up all that much. Okay, so we'll do it like this. Okay. Our final question is, we understand now when the Torah was received is something that there are many ways of understanding. And we understand now that who received it is very different to what we understood. And now if we ask, and I'll just end this more as an open question, because this will be for another time. When we think about then what we received, usually the sort of traditional response we get is we receive the Torah, or we receive the oral Torah, which is the Mishnah, the Talmud, and everything. But here I want to conclude by something, by sharing a little anecdote. Some months ago, I went to meet a Kes. Kes is a spiritual leader of the Ethiopian Jewish community. Kes Maseret. Kes Maseret. He is the son of who used to be the chief Kohen of the Ethiopian Jewish community in Israel. Brilliant man. And I asked Kes Maseret, could you explain to me the difference between the way I see Judaism and your Jewish tradition? And he said something to me that I think about almost every day until today. And I'm going to continue thinking about. It is just mind-boggling. He says, you want to understand the difference between your tradition of Torah and mine? It's very simple. How do you call Moses? What do you call Moses? I say Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? We all know Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, do you know what we call Moses? Moshe Nevienu. Moshe the prophet. Orthodox Judaism, Reform Judaism, Conservative Judaism, Reconstructionist Judaism are all far more similar one to the other in that we view Moses as Rabbi Moses. We still go with the invention of the rabbi. Whereas for Ethiopian Jewry, there is no rabbi. There is no oral tradition of Talmud and Mishnah, because according to tradition, Ethiopian Jewry get to Ethiopia between First Temple, Second Temple. Thus, Moses will forever always be Moses the prophet. He's not a rabbi. It doesn't say it anywhere. And I'm just leaving this open as a sort of provocative ending, that even when we think we understand what we received and we pull out every midrash we want, there is a world of knowledge still to be learned today about what really we received. And here I do mean specifically the need to understand more about the difference between this question of what it means to be Jewish from an Ethiopian Jewish viewpoint, which in many ways is 180 degrees from and clusters together Reform, Orthodox, and everything else, because it's based on this Moshe Rabbi as opposed to Moshe Navi, Moshe our prophet. So I'm concluding here to leave time for questions or comments. We've looked at three different moments or three different questions. When, who, and what. We focused mainly on when and who. And through looking at teachings, we've been fair. North Africa, from Galicia, from the Balkans, all over, and different times. We've looked at, to my mind, very unique views, but to be fair, they have a ripple effect in many texts. So it's not that we've sort of found the extraordinary. It's more these texts are extraordinary in that they share a little bit more explicitly aspects of Mount Sinai and what Tshuva means and what revelation means and what unity means. Right? This final segment of what we received is all about unity. It's this idea that so long as we stay within the confines of what we know and what we feel is safe for us, that's great. But it's only sometimes through getting out of our comfort zone that we can really create that unity by taking in another view that at times can be worlds apart from where we are. So this is the story. I hope I've been able to sort of, not me, but through these sources, change the way or inspire different thinking, and potentially, a goal for this class is to now seek for each one of ourselves as a sort of starting point of soul searching, what does Mount Sinai mean for us? So thank you very much.
Yes, we would love to take a couple questions with our time that we have left. Please feel free, if anyone would like to ask a question, you can raise your hands, and you can also use the chat as well. Janet, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for that. I have a question, because when you say Moshe Rabbeinu, my understanding of that word is more teacher than rabbi. But then prophet is different than teacher. To me, it sort of means bringing in some information that wasn't developed within yourself, but came into you. And so I'm just wondering if that's kind of what you mean, if that difference.
So that's a very important point, Janet. I'll stress it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have this rabbinic / teacher culture, it puts the individual in the center.
Right.
Everyone can be a rabbi. There are many rabbis. I choose my rabbi. I choose my teacher. Ethiopian Jew, it's not like that. You don't get to choose. There's one teacher, Moses. He's the teacher of God, and that has ramifications. So thank you for that, because and in that sense, this individual culture of, well, I go to my teacher, my Rav, or whoever it is very different than this idea of, and this is one of the reasons why between First and Second Temple and the way Ethiopian Jewry, as what is considered one of the 10 tribes or lost tribes, so to speak. So when you think about it, the reason Ethiopian Jewry, to my mind, is one of the most important aspects in which we should and must learn more about what it means to be Jewish is precisely because we do not have another instance of a Jewish people in diaspora that we know survived isolated without what the rest of us got. Right? Yemenite Jews split up somewhat, but not really, after getting everything. Ethiopian Jew and Kaifeng Jews, and we have Jews all over the world that at some point are isolated. Now we've heard that Christopher Columbus potentially. The point is, Ethiopian Jewry have a book. In fact, they don't even have the Masorah text. They have the Septuagint. They have what the Torah in Gez is a translation of the first translation of the Bible into Greek. So it's still Torah, but the point is, when that's all you have and you need to maintain tradition and you stick with Moshe is my prophet, that enables you it explains a lot of how this is perhaps the only Jewish society that was able to maintain here. This is who we are, what we are. Unlike, there is no other instance. So, but that's a whole other story. So thank you for that.
And what was the word you used for Moshe, the prophet? What was the Hebrew Moshe?
Nevi'enu, Navi.
Navi'enu.
Navi.
Okay.
Navi. So we have here Rona.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Johnny. This was wonderful, and thank you for elucidating what eternal means, and that the Torah is always with us. I have two questions. One is, how can we study this further with you? Number one. Number two, can you just give us a quick kind of caption about the what did we receive? I mean, we didn't have a chance to look at your material, but just, in a nutshell.
Yes. So
what do you think?
Okay, so regarding the other question, how we can continue, I'll leave that to Alex and Rabbi Shmuley. I've done in the past a series on the Maggid of Zlotcho for an entire year. We'll find something. Let's not worry about that. But thank you. In terms of what, in a nutshell, look, this is a huge topic because
absolutely, yeah,
if we had time, and I think there is a lesson where we delve more into this further on in the year, but it manifests itself in so many different ways, in the way in which we view Shabbos differently, the understanding, once we don't have an oral tradition, and I go with Moshe, my prophet, and what I understand and what my Shabbos looks like, whether I'm everyone else in the world or I'm Ethiopian, but it's also the way I tell stories, right? I can, if we had time, we would look at the same story, right? Culturally, it's fascinating that if you you look at indigenous Australia, say the Aranda tribe, and they have Central Australia, they have their own secrets of, or what are called song lines of creation, of how God or the divine sung the world into existence. Okay, it's a different kind of idea. And there are a lot of similarities and a lot of myths. And I say myth, just I don't like that word, but this idea of something that we carry. Sometimes you have different cultures where you have the exact same story or the shell.
Yes.
And yet the nuanced differences make them worlds apart. And in that sense, this is a huge question. Like it really, but it just means that what we usually tap into when we look at what we received is more often than not, and I guess the big claim here is that the gap between reconstruction and Orthodox, and this is very provocative, but is thinking frequencies is so much more on the similar frequency than Moshe Nevi'enu, Moshe Rabbeinu. Because of so many things, because of the way you think in Western terms of time. Again, this goes back to this. And I guess the closest example I could give is, there have been a lot of studies, especially, recent times, say Navajo grammar, indigenous American tribes grammar, where you don't have verbs of, I cleaned the barrel of the gun, but the little fuzzy thing is going up and down. So stewardship and who I am and what we are changes dramatically. Grammar changes everything, and what grammar we're using, and then how we're interpreting certain texts. So this really is a huge topic. I hope I've been able to give just a few snippets of that. Any other final questions? On my part, I'm happy to go on for more. What do we have here in the Ethiopian Jews don't believe in rabbinic Judaism? No. So historically, Ethiopian Jews, no, they didn't. They weren't aware for hundreds, thousands of years of the Talmud, of the Mishnah. That's factual. The plot thickens when Ethiopian Jews arrive in Israel. And I'm talking about, Israeli operations to bring Ethiopian Jews, or Ethiopian Jews that somehow miraculously made it on their own, walking through Sudan, many dying on the way and yet making it. And they're incredible stories. Once an Ethiopian Jew reaches Israel, and you're told, to be Jewish, there are certain terms and things you need to be doing. Shabbos, I'll give you the most provocative difference. To most Jews, say take the Zohar, and the Zohar here is sort of a good representative of most Jews in the other part of the world. Sexual relations between husband and wife on Shabbos is a big yes. Ethiopian Jewry, you're dead. Very simple. Huge no-no. And so what happens when you come to Israel and you're told, that there's something else now going on, or what do you do? And this is a small example. We're not even going to get into Purim and Chanukah. So essentially what happened was there was this compromise. Well, you're going to, have to do Giur. You're going to have to become... It's a whole mess. If we really look into the intricacies of it, so the older generation of Ethiopian Jews will usually keep on with their own customs of what they're used to, and no one's going to say anything. And the younger generation, I have a very good friend, Kes Ephraim Lawi, who was the first spiritual leader of the Ethiopian Jewish community, who was born in Israel. And his synagogue isn't anything like the guy I told you about, Kes Maseret, who happens to be in Beersheba. So it's a dynamic community changing. There's even been a great book written. I don't know if it's been translated in English. So there's a rabbi called Rabbi Sharon Shalom, who wrote a book that's sole purpose was to explain to Ethiopian Jews how to navigate between halacha, or what it means to be Jewish in the rest of the world, and once you come to Israel. And he tried to kind of navigate, and he did try and find this golden mean of the older you are, you can do whatever you're used to, and the younger you are, things are going to change. So that's on that. Tell me if I've missed anything. Okay.
Can I maybe ask
sure.
one more question?
Sure.
To appreciate and study and the role and significance of the Torah, do you have to believe in God, and is there a specific type of belief in? Do you need? I mean, obviously, we don't see grandfathers sitting on sitting on a throne.
Yeah.
But is the nature of our belief of God, how does that tie into our belief in use and significance of Torah?
That's a wonderful question, Michael. And like everything in Judaism, it's a machloket. There is a debate on the matter. And the real star of the show here is a Jewish, an enigmatic Jewish figure who we all have heard of due to the golem that perhaps he had perpetrated, or the golem story. And I'm talking about the Maharal of Prague. The Maharal of Prague is, I think, the first point in time where we have an articulation whereby so long as you sit and study, that's all that matters. Intent does not matter. There is internal power in the actual studying Torah. And then in Hasidism, this evolves into, even if you take a verse in the Torah and mispronounce it to the point where it's such a gross mispronunciation that instead of saying something like, God loves the Jewish people, God hates the Jewish people, God's an idolater, it meaning something outrageous, by the mere fact that you are sitting and studying, there's merit in that. So, this became a very dominant view. It begins, if I'm not mistaken, with the Maharal of Prague, and then it evolves in Hasidism, which essentially is kind of, social manifestation of Kabbalah, that if you sit and you study, what you think or believe doesn't really matter. So that I'd say today is a sort of big major view, majority view on that issue. So thank you for that. Any other questions?
I think we will have to wrap up. I hope we got to all the questions. I think we did. Dr. Schnytzer, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to learn with you. And thank you all for attending as well.